Finally, I just want to briefly cover the basic notions with respect to the neuroanatomy of human language. And there seem to be two parts of the brain that are intimately linked to our ability for language. One is in the frontal lobe, typically referred to as Broca's area, also known as the inferior frontal gyrus, because it's in the lowermost inferior gyrus in the frontal lobe. And the other one in the back, towards the back of the brain, known as Wernicke's area. And this is in the temporal lobe, or at the junction between the temporal lobe and the parietal lobe just above. And these two areas seem to specialize in different aspects of our language. Now, with respect to Broca's area, both neuropsychological and imaging work suggest that it plays an important role in both the processing and forging of hierarchical structures of sentences, and so the production of the sentences, but also the understanding of complex syntax. Indeed, damage to this region can lead to very severe speech deficits, and I'll give you an example in just a moment, although not always. Now, this region is known as Broca's area because Paul Broca, French neuroanatomist and French doctor, got interested in this area when a patient of his lost his ability to communicate. And indeed, the patient is often referred to as Tan, because the only thing he could say was the word Tan. And what you can see here is this is Tan's brain. And you can see that he had a large damage exactly in the area that we today refer to broadly as Broca's area. Now, typically, patients who have damage to this area tend to have trouble with speech production. Their speech is often reduced to sort of a start-stop, short and simple type sentences, mainly just verbs and nouns and just simple conjunction connectors. So in the sense, they don't seem to generate the complex syntax typical of natural language. Reading and writing, not as affected, although it can be in some cases. Interestingly, deaf people who get a damage to this part of the brain can demonstrate it in their signing, although sort of it depends on a number of factors. I should highlight that nonetheless, some patients get a lesion to this area and do not get these symptoms, and you can actually get these symptoms by lesions not to this area. But overall, there definitely is an association between Broca's area, this part of the inferior frontal gyrus, and our ability to process and understand and produce the sort of the elaborate syntax and the hierarchical syntax of natural language. Let me give you an example. So one way in which we often study aphasia is, for example, by showing a scene such as this one, and you can see there's a lot, there are various things going on. And then we just ask patients to describe it. And this is exactly what's going to happen in this particular context. So this is a patient who exhibits the symptoms of Broca's aphasia.
And stool, is it boy? Is it landing down? Girl is laughing. And cookie jar, okay, window, curtains, and out the garden, and trees, low grass, and lady washing the dishes, and hot and cold water plashing, running floor, and the cups of 2 cups of coffee or
And so you can see her difficulty in describing this scene. In fact, this is actually the transcript from this patient. And as you can notice, and as you heard as she was speaking, lots of conjunctive sentences, meaning lots of and this and that, and also those sort of single short brief sentences. Stool, is it boy? Is it that landing down? Clearly having understood that the boy is about to fall. Girl is laughing, and cookie jar, curtains, and out the garden. It's a very flat type of structure. She clearly seems to be understanding what's happening. She remembers the name of things. She understands what is a stool. There's a cookie jar. There's water. So she's clearly understanding what is happening, but she in the scene. But she obviously is struggling to produce language, and in particular, she just doesn't seem to be producing those complex sequences of words typical of natural language. Those complex sentences with sort of with a more hierarchical structure. And indeed, the neuroimaging work does show that Broca's area is particularly important in the context of processing the structure of language. Now, the second part of the brain that I want to mention, as I said, it's at the junction of the temporal lobe. So this is the temporal lobe, and up here there's the parietal lobe. So on the temporal lobe, but nearby, it's posterior and close to parietal cortex, there is Wernicke's area. And Wernicke's area seems to be particularly important for comprehension and semantics. Indeed, damage to this area leads to what is known as Wernicke's aphasia, also known as a fluent aphasia, and it should be immediate why in the video that I'll show in just a moment. Patients with this condition tend to show very impaired comprehension, although this obviously can vary and can be of different degrees. And just they seem to have a problem with the production of meaningful sentences. Again, this is a patient with Wernicke's aphasia.
Hi, Byron. How are you?
I'm happy. Are you pretty? You look good.
What are you doing today?
We stayed with the water over here at the moment and talked with the people for them over there. They're diving for them at the moment. They'll save in the moment. He'll have water very soon for him. With luck for him.
So we're on a cruise and we're about to get to June.
We will store it right here and they'll save their hands right there for them.
And what were we just doing with the iPad?
Right at the moment, they don't show a darn thing.
With the iPad that we were doing. Like here?
I'd like my change for me and change hands for me. It would happen. I would talk with Donna sometimes. We're out with them. Other people are working with them. I'm very happy with them.
Good.
This girl was very good and happy. And I play golf and hit other trees. We play out with the hands. We save a lot of hands on hold for us, other hands. I don't know what you get, but I talk with a lot of hand for him. Sometime. Am I talk of any more to saying?
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I hope the world lasts for you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
So they're clearly very different circumstances. And you might have noticed, so first you've obviously noticed how just the words he was using were just the wrong words. They were not meaningful. His sentences didn't convey any meaning. It felt like word salad in terms of the specific words that he was using. You didn't probably notice, however, that the order in which he was stringing the words seemed perfectly fine. as if he clearly seems to retain syntax. He knows how to string words properly. He knows how to put where to put a verb, where to put a noun, etc. But he just doesn't seem to have the ability to control the semantics and the exact words that fall into each position. So again, clearly an example of somebody who lost the ability for probably comprehension and definitely expression in terms of the contents of the message, but seems to have retained the ability to forge the syntactic structures typical of language.